Welcome, and thank you for deciding to remain tuned on Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. Now, let's cross over to Nairobi for our evaluation of how their markets played out. Remember, this is the biggest stock exchange in East Africa, and it's one of also the most influential stock markets in the region as well as on the continent. Now, on Friday's trading, on aggregate, there were 44 of the 65 listed companies that participated in the daily trading, and the day ended with 19 gainers and 15 losers, with the gainers led by East Portland Cement Company and East African Portland Cement Company. And this led by a 9.09% gain, with a share price appreciation of about 9.09%, closing at around 8.40 Kenyan shillings per share. They were followed by EGADS. EGADS came in at a 5.47% gain, whereas Kabaseed Investments Company came in at a 3.33 percentage gain, and Centum Investment Company came in at a 3.26 percentage gain, closing at 9.50 Kenyan shillings. We also had Express Kenya gain at a 2.70%, closing at a price of 3.8 Kenyan shillings as well. These were just a few of the many gainers on the market, of the 19 gainers on the market. Generally, the market performance was good. Look at Portland Cement, EGAD, Kabaseed, and Centum. Now, if you are following the show, Centum also gained on the stock market here in Uganda, and so was their gain there in Nairobi. And usually that gain usually influences more of what happens on the Uganda Stock Exchange with them as well. And so, yes, the markets were very well, of course, balanced, and with several equities participating in the trading. On the losing side, we had Samia Africa coming out at the end of the table with a price depreciation of a 6.29% and at a price of 3.28 Kenyan shillings per share, closing the day on Friday. And Samia Africa from the bottom was also followed by Commercial Bank of Kenya at a 5.6% loss, whereas Diamond Trust Bank of Kenya also lost 3.85%, and the TPS East African Serena Hotel that also lost by 3.24%, whereas we had Safaricom also coming as a gainer, but with a very wonderful 7.76 million shares that was traded, and of course was a top mover on the markets. Other movers on the top, we had the Cooperative Bank of Kenya at 617,100 shares, and the Kenya Power and Lighting Company at 528,800 shares, whereas the Kengen Group came in at 425,300 shares. Regarding the performance of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, just like we've seen that good performance, it rubbed off some of that to the all-share index, and the index climbed by 0.64 points to that's by about 0.47% on a daily gain, to close at exactly 138.01 points, representing a one-week gain of 0.07% and a 4-week loss of 2.31%, and an overall year-to-date loss of 17.09%. Other remarkable indices that performed well were the NSE 20 index, and this gained by 0.26% and 0.81% on the daily and weekly performance monitor. But in terms of the year-to-date, it lost by 7.31%. The NSE 25 that monitors the performance of the top 25 companies gained by 0.36% on a daily and by 0.07% on a weekly basis. But on an overall year-to-date performance, it has lost about 12.69% of that price valuation. Let's look at now East African Portland Cement, who came in at the top of the performers there on the market in Nairobi. East African Portland Cement is a Kenya-based company engaged in the manufacture and sale of cement. It sells its products under the brand name Blue Triangle, and Blue Triangle is used for cementing, mortar, and the concrete used for the concrete building applications. And the company also manufactures custom-based cement products for use in special purposes like construction, as well as precast concrete items such as paving, such as they have, for example, paving blocks, tiles, building blocks, and many other pre-stressed concrete components. The East African Portland Cement concrete pavers are used in construction of roads, hydraulic and marine structures, walkways, parking areas, petrol stations, and go-down flows as well. The company has been listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange for some time and is trading under the ticker symbol PORT or PORT, and the International Securities Identification Number for the company is KE000190. The East African Portland Cement Company Limited currently is the 48th most valuable stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with an average market capitalization of 756 million Kenyan shillings, which is about 0.035% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange equity market. When you look at their performance here in terms of year-to-date, in terms of monthly, 3 months, and so on, after closing their last day of trading on Friday at a price of 7.7, after gaining about 9.1%, the East African Portland Cement is one of now the top performing companies in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Following, of course, beginning the year with the price of 6.66 Kenyan shillings, it has since gained 26.1% on the price valuation, which is the 5th best on the Nairobi Securities Exchange in terms of the year-to-date performance. And shareholders should be very, very optimistic about East Africa Portland Company, a cement company, knowing that their stock has accrued a total of 9% over the past 4 weeks as well, which is the best on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So East African Portland has really put up a very wonderful show within the last 1 month, being the best performer of the month, but as well in terms of year-to-date, it comes in the position number 5 out of the 65 listed companies on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, East African Portland Cement Company is the 52nd, however, most traded stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange over the last 3 months, from the 6th of June to the 2nd of September. Portland has, East African Portland Cement has traded a total volume of over 38,700 shares within this period in over 61 deals that are valued at 293,270 shares, Kenyan shillings over this period, with an average of 614 traded shares per session, and a volume high of 10,900 was achieved on the 20th of July within the same period. Therefore, we can say that maybe Portland Cement still has a little more work to do in terms of traded stock, in terms of volumes, because it's coming in the 52nd place. Remember, I told you, you must look at all the performance indicators. Despite the fact that East African Portland Cement has been able to put up a very nice show in terms of pricing, in terms of improving prices and, you know, adding value to their shareholders, with over a 26.1% year-to-date gain, and a very good, wonderful monthly performance. In terms of volume, you're still seeing a lack of activity. The company has just had only, well, about, let's see, maybe just over about 293,000 Kenyan shillings trading, with over only 614 deals, 614 traded shares. So still a little bit of work needs to be done there for the company to be more active. But in terms of year to date and the price improvements, it's doing quite well, and it's quite commendable for that matter for any investor looking out for investment in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. That brings us to the end of the East African Portland Cement Company. Now, let's look at the EGADS. EGADS was the second top performer on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. EGADS Limited is principally engaged in the growing and selling of coffee. During the year ended December 31st, 2005, the area bearing coffee was over about 131 hectares, and the quantity of coffee harvested amounted to over 223 tons of clean weight equivalent. And the ultimate company, holding company, is the Compagnie Internationale de Cultures, Intercultures, that is SA, and the EGADS has been listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange under the symbol EGAD, that is EGAD, that is the symbol with which it trades, and is the 51st most valuable stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with a total capitalization of 434 million Kenyan shillings, which is about 0.02% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange equity market. Well, in terms of their weekly performance and 1 month performance, they have been able to gain 5.5% over its previous closing price, which was 12.8. And in terms of trading, they're the 54th most traded stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange over the past 3 months. Still lacking in terms of volumes, and still a little bit of improvement is still needed in the pricing if this EGAD company is also to be considered among some of the most great companies that you can actually look out for on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, looking at the summary of the trading here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, there was a total of 11,132,500 shares, which were in over 827 deals, corresponding to a market value of over 287 million Kenyan shillings. Compared with the previous day of trading, there was a 51% decline in the volumes that were traded, and there was also a 61% decline in the turnover that was recorded, and a 17% decline still was registered in the deals that were made on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The current market capitalization of the Nairobi Securities Exchange is currently at 2.15 trillion Kenyan shillings on the market. And in aggregate, over 44 Nairobi Securities Exchange listed companies were able to participate, as I mentioned earlier on. That brings us to the end of the Nairobi Securities Exchange analysis. You can find more still on their website at www.nairobisecuritiesexchange.com for more information regarding the 65 listed equities. And we don't want you to limit yourself. You can still expand your wings. There are stock exchanges elsewhere in Africa. There's a stock exchange in Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. There's Rwanda Stock Exchange. There's Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which is the biggest stock exchange, at least in Africa, and still considerable in the world, and was one of the largest exchanges, and so many others. We just want you to diversify as much as you can your portfolio, so you can also diversify your risk as well there, so that you don't lose money. You know, the thing is, you must be diverse in order to avert some of the risks that come along with investment in some of these ventures. Now let's go into our top story making headlines this morning. The commercial banks been claimed to be solid enough to be able to withstand shocks, according to Bank of Uganda. Now, Bank of Uganda conducted stress tests in 5 banks last year to test resilience, according to the Deputy Governor of Bank of Uganda, Dr. Michael Etinji Ego. And the stress tests, he said, were conducted on systematically important domestic banks to ensure that they were safe and sound and could support the economy through different shocks. The stress tests were conducted on banks to determine whether they have enough capital to withstand the shocks. And speaking during the 27th annual seminar for the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda in Entebbe, Wakiso District on Wednesday, Dr. Atinji Michael Ego said that the tests, which had sought to ensure that banks could support the economy through hard times, returned positive, and noting that the resilience that had been built over the years following 2007-2008 financial crisis had put the financial system in a better position to absorb the COVID-19 related risks and onward shocks. He said, and I quote, this matters greatly because having a resilient financial system means that the business lending is sustained. And we went further to provide for accommodative policy measures to ensure that the financial institutions had access to liquidity, even as they restructured performing loans that had been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. In its 2020 annual supervision report, the Bank of Uganda indicated that the 5 domestic systematically important banks, including Stanbic and Standard Chartered, Centenary, and DFCU, as well as ABSA, those were the 5 domestically systematically important banks according to the reports. Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and Centenary, as well as DFCU and ABSA. These 5 banks, the report indicated, at least hold 57% of the banking sector assets, and their soundness is an indicator of the wider health of the banking sector. Now, Dr. Atinji Ego also indicated that COVID-19 had presented policy makers and financial market regulators with the first major test of the post-financial crisis reforms requiring prudent and balanced management of the economy to mitigate existing challenges. However, he also noted that whereas the current geopolitical conflicts have generated new shocks. They have had significant influence in reshaping the way the bank works, and that is remote working to meet, that is virtual meetings, and transact, that is e-payments, adding that the resilience built over the years prevented the financial system from failing during the COVID-19 pandemic and continues to keep it afloat amid a new shock that is experienced financially. And of course, that's a report from the Bank of Uganda Deputy Governor Dr. Michael Atingi Ego, saying that the banks are really ready for the shocks ahead. Even they have shown resilience despite the shocks they have been bombarded with in the recent past. You have been a wonderful viewer. Thank you very much. You can give us feedback on the show, what you think about the stock markets, what you expect on our Twitter handle. That's a Smart24TV. And my personal handle is Anthony Sebale, and you can follow and, of course, like and tweet as well, and get us, of course, moving from wherever you are watching. Thank you very much for staying tuned. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.